educational policy for social development. I examined the conditions and the social benefits of course elimination at the upper secondary level in sub-Saharan Africa. And my supervisors are Professor Dusek and Professor Atina Bata. In today's presentation, I'll be going through the research problem and the puzzles. I'll be going through the theoretical frameworks and literature review, the conceptual map, and the core relevance of the research. I'll pose the research questions and the structure of the dissertation, the research approach and method, then I'll come up with the results, and then I'll come up with some conclusions and some theoretical and policy implications. From the 1957s through to the 1960s, very many sub-Saharan African countries had their independence, mainly from the British or the Francophone countries. The new leaders of these countries were very ambitious to pursue educational policies that will ensure level of education improve. This was because access to education or the level of literacy in the region was very low compared to other regions. This led to the country, the leaders building school infrastructures, providing direct investment in education. However, in the 1980s, something happened across the globe and there was a lot of economic challenges, and so these countries ran into debt crisis. They didn't have any option to invite the International Monetary Fund at that time, where they came in to survey the situation. When they came, one of their main policy recommendations was to liberalize education. That is, let the students pay or let the people pay for the cost of education. This led to the educational indicators remain stagnant, couldn't improve anymore. And so from the 2000 and 1990s coming, the introduction of the Millennium Development Goals by the United Nations emphasized on access to primary education for all. And so there were a lot of focus on primary education or lower secondary level, also referred to as the basic education. And so countries in the region improved when it comes to basic educational indicators. And so attention was not paid so much to the upper secondary level. And so a lot of people will complete basic school, but they were unable to further the education to the upper secondary level. Using myself, standing here as an example, I completed basic education in 2005. And when I completed, I nearly missed out to enroll in upper secondary education because we couldn't afford, my parents couldn't afford. It took a last-minute intervention of a kind person to assist me to enroll, and which I have written about it extensively on the internet. And so you could imagine, this happened just 2005, and so you could imagine what the situation was like previously. Many people were unable to afford. And so going into the 2005 or the 2015, and with the introduction of Sustainable Development Goals by the United Nations, emphasis was placed on upper secondary education for all. And so these new countries started, for example, Kenya, Ghana, South Africa, Uganda, Malawi, started to introduce policies called cost elimination policies, often referred to as fee-free education. And so, as somebody who is very much interested in education, and with my background from the master's level where I tried to study prisons and got to know that a lot of people in prison doesn't have access to education or they are below upper secondary level. When I started my PhD studies, I was very much interested to know the evolution of these policies in the region. What are the conditions prevailing in these countries that are leading them to adopt fee-free policies from the basic level to the upper secondary level? What is leading them to expand these fee-free policies? I was also very interested to know the effect of these new policies on access to education. Does it have any effect at all on enrollment among others? I was also very much interested to know the impact. Does these policies have any impact on society at all, especially crime reduction among others? So these were the puzzles that I was faced when I began my PhD studies. From there, I tried to conduct literature review. And in the literature review, what I got to know was that there are a lot of scholars who have advanced a lot of theories to explain expansionist social policies. Key among them were the level of democracy, that is either the countries are democratic or authoritarian, the ideological orientation of the political party, that is the rightist or leftist ideological continuum, the social context, and these are a lot of fragmented policies or theoretical framework that has been offered. But the gap I identified was that the expansion of free policies from the basic level to the upper secondary level has not been touched at all. So we are not able to explain what is provided or what conditions prevail in these countries to expand access to education from basic level to the upper secondary level. Another key thing I identified in the literature was that education, especially at the upper secondary level, improves human capital, which is very well established in the Western literature among others. And one key thing I also emphasize that access to education in Sub-Saharan Africa was low because of poverty. People cannot afford. Based on this, I was interested, or the gap I identified was that examining the whole region as the region from a broader perspective, that the policies that are being introduced have any effect on enrollment has not been studied, or even if they have been studied, it is at the basic level, or even individual countries. The region has not been studied as a whole. So I was interested to also fill this gap in the literature. The third aspect was that the Western literature argues that education reduces crime. That is the general perspective. And more so, in modeling education and crime relationship, you know that education can affect crimes the same way crime can affect education. And so there's an homogeneity problem there. So if you're modeling these studies, you need to have some instrumental variables which can help you to know that the education that is being provided is affecting crime. And so I was interested to use the policies that is being adopted in many of the sub-Saharan African countries to know the effect of education in crime reduction within the region. This topic has not been touched at all according to the literature review that I conducted. Based on this literature review, I got a conceptual map which led to the relevance of the study and which motivated me to conduct the study. Based on that, I got 3 research ambitions. The first research ambition was to look at the evolution of the policy alternative. How do they evolve? How do they come about? And so the relevance is that I'll be able to provide some conditions or offer some explanations to explain the adoption of cost elimination policies as a component of expansionary social policies in the region. The second research ambition was to know the policy outcome. Does it have any effect on the enrollment, access to education at all? And based on this, the relevance is that I can examine the region from a broader perspective to know the outlook and not just individual countries. The third research ambition was to examine any policy impact. Does it have any effect on aggregated crime at all, using the social support theory, which says that offering support, social support to individuals in the state impacts social variable. So I was interested to know the nexus between the education crime in the region and the role that free policies play in this nexus. From there, I developed 3 main research questions. And each of these 3 main research questions has contributed to a paper that has been published in a K1 or K2 international journal. And so the first research ambition led to a paper titled The Qualities of Social Policy in Sub-Saharan Africa, a configurational approach to free policies at the high school level. This paper was published in July 2023 in a K2 journal. It's a sole authorship paper. The second research ambition led to a paper titled The Effect of Cost Elimination on Secondary School Enrollment in Sub-Saharan Africa. This paper was also published in March 2022 in a K1 journal, which is a sole author paper. The third research ambition led to a paper titled The Positive Externality of Education on Crime, Insight from Sub-Saharan Africa. This paper was also published in February 2022 in a K2 journal with one of my supervisors, Professor Attila Bata. And so the article structure said that it is based on these 3 papers which constitute the body of the dissertation, often referred to as a portfolio or article-based dissertation. This is how I approach the research. I approach it from multiple methodological approaches. And so in the first research ambition, I approach it more of an explorative studies, whereby I try to look at the theoretical explanation that has been offered to explain expansionary social policy, to know what conditions prevail to cause the presence of free policies and also the absence of free policies. Based on the nature of this study, I employ what we call the qualitative comparative analysis, QCA, because in social science we believe that different conditions can lead to one outcome. And so I apply the QCA here. In the QCA, based on the literature review, I focused on 5 main conditions. The first one was the regime type. Either the cases I'm studying or the countries are democratic or authoritarian, and also electoral competition. Electoral competition, I operationalize that either the political parties who are seeking for power are promising these free policies that when they come to power they will implement it or not. And then I also focus on ideological lineage. In the ideological lineage, either the political parties in power or the leadership are the leftists or the rightists ideological continuum. I also look at the economic conditions, the level of economic development or the growth of this development. And also the social context is very important because in upper secondary school, it is those coming from the basic level who feed these people. So I look at the level of participation at the upper secondary level as the 5 main conditions. And then the outcomes were 2, presence of free policy and absence. In the research ambition 2 and 3, I rely on pure statistical analysis using large N panel data analysis with fixed effects as the main analytical tool. In the research ambition 2, the main dependent variable was upper secondary because I wanted to look at the effect of cost elimination on enrollment. And because the literature argues that poverty is one of the main drivers which prevent people to access education, I wanted to look at the moderating rule of aggregate poverty, how that poverty moderates the cost elimination enrollment measures. And in the research ambition 3, I put two main hypotheses, that is increase in high school education will have negative effect on theft rates and also homicide rates, with property crime, theft rate using as a proxy for property crime and homicide as a violent crime. The main independent variable was upper secondary education. There, I tried to utilize the instrumental variable to know the impact that these free policies will have in this measures. Dear professors, dear colleagues, members, panel chair, these were my results. In the first research ambition, I realized that the configuration, electoral competition, or low level of economy, or electoral competition and high level of secondary school enrollment are sufficient to cause the presence of free policies in the sub-region. The interesting aspect was that when we analyzed the configuration for the absence of free policies, the absence of electoral competition was enough to cause the absence of electoral competition. What this is telling us is that electoral competition is playing a very significant role in all the configuration. And so you could expect in sub-Saharan African countries, which is developing economies that, or the developing democracies that, if political parties are not involved to promise these free policies when they come to power, you should expect these policies not to materialize. The second research ambition, which will deal with free policies and enrollment. The first hypothesis, which look at the relationship, enrollment, and cost elimination policy and enrollment, the hypothesis 1 was accepted in that I found a significant positive results between cost elimination and enrollment. That is, a unit presence of cost elimination led to about 6% increase in enrollment, all other things being equal. In the hypothesis 2, which was much more interesting to me, was that in the presence of free policies, if you look at the marginal effect, you will see that if poverty rate is increasing, the national poverty rate is increasing, even in the presence or absence of free policies, there's positive effect on enrollment will be decreasing. And so what this is telling us is that no matter the level of cost elimination you offer to your citizens, if you don't check other variables such as the rate of national poverty, you don't expect the positive effect to materialize. In the research ambition 3, which deals with enrollment and crime rates, I'll talk there were two hypotheses, the theft and homicide. So I'll first of all talk about the theft rate and later I'll go to the homicide rate. In the theft rate, we realize that there's a significant negative relationship between the level of enrollment and crime rate. A 1 minute or 1% increase in enrollment led to about 1.6% decrease in theft rate, or other things being equal. What was interesting in this result was that if you estimate the model using the instrumental variable estimation with the cost elimination policy as the IV, which was identified as a valid and relevant instrument, you will see that the negative effect will increase to about negative 3.3%. What this tells us is that if you implement these policies to boost enrollment, it have more or significant negative effect on theft rate across the region, or other things being equal. However, we didn't find any significant effect between enrollment and homicide rate. How we explained this was that homicide rate is caused by a lot of factors which most of the time very difficult to be accounted by aggravated crime. And so it wasn't all that surprising that homicide couldn't find any significant relationship between these two variables. Professors, these are some conclusions that could be offered from the study. So from the study, we could see that free educational policies are mainly driven by electoral competition within the domestic political environment. And in the region, there's a debate ongoing that there's a lot of policy discontinuity in the region, that this government comes to power, initiate these policies and go, and another government comes and they don't continue that policy. Could this be an explanation to that? These are future ambitions that I'm thinking of. Maybe they don't believe in that ambition because the policy were not instituted within a broader national framework, and so could that be the reason that is explaining that? But the dissertation has let us know that these policies are being mainly influenced or comes about because of the domestic political parties want to be promise it, they can do it, and then a whole lot of things. Two, what we can deduce from the dissertation is that as scholars, we need to rethink about the left hand of the partisan theory of policy outcome. There's a lot of literature which states that leftist ideological parties intend to offer more expansionary social policies compared to their counterpart in the rightist ideological continuum. But there are some recent literature in the Southern America and West Central and Eastern Europe which is arguing that no, rightist political parties offer equal social policies compared to their counterpart, and even they tend to offer more social policies. And in this dissertation, if you do the individual case analysis, what we realized was that parties in the Sub-Saharan Africa would belong to the rightist ideological continuum were the ones who are initiating more social policies compared to the leftists. And so as scholars, I'm drawing our attention to the fact that we need to rethink about the left hand of this partisan theory that it is the leftist ideological parties who initiate more social policies. The evidence coming up now is pointing to the contrary. 3. Offering free education policies improves school participation, and therefore, since the literature have argued that education participation at upper secondary level is linked to human capital development, then it means offering more free policies will have in one way or another improve human capital development across the region. But we shouldn't lose the fact that we cannot perceive these policies in isolation, because if you are perceiving these policies and the rate of national poverty is increasing, you may see the effects in the immediate short term, but in the long term you will see the effect declining, because free policy you cannot eliminate all costs. There are other costs, indirect costs, transportation, school uniform. You cannot afford to. So you have to make sure that people are able to afford these things, apart from removing registration fees or tuition fees. That is not enough. So you need to check other variables to make sure that people are able to afford the others. 4. Offering free policies. This study gives credence to the social support theory, which was developed in the United States, that instrumental support offers to people impact aggregate variables such as crime reduction. So if you provide support to people, it helps them to motivate us, which has an effect at the national level. And this study gives credence to this theory. And so as a policy recommendation, what I'm offering to developing democracies or developing countries in Sub-Saharan Africa is that our attention to reduce crime shouldn't focus on crime control measures only, such as imprisonment. No, but there should be conscious effort to support people so that they can build themselves, and this one way or the other will have effect, if not at all, on the rate of theft across the region. There are some novelties that when developed throughout the study. The application of the QCA methodology was very innovative. We were able to use that to know different conditions leading to one outcome and study a lot of cases. And the use of the panel data and the instrumental variable. This topic or this IV has not been used most often across the region. And so this study opens the door for other scholars in the region to study other countries or other variables in that line. And then the aggregate poverty crime, moderating this enrollment cost elimination effect is very novel in the sense that offering free education is not all. You need to check other social variables. There are some limitations, of course, that we encountered throughout the study. In the first research ambition, we understand that there are other potential socio-political variables that could serve as potential drivers to free policy. For example, the level of civil society development. These are other conditions that we believe could serve, but we couldn't study all these conditions. And so, what we offer as a avenue for further research is for scholars to look at other conditions that are potential and include what has been identified here, which is the electoral competition, and see if you could still have a stronger effect from the electoral competition or other drivers, potential drivers who come in as well. And in the research ambition 2 and 3, we excluded some countries from the analysis, and mainly because there were not data about all these Sub-Saharan African countries, so we couldn't include them. But we believe that this study opens the broader perspective for other scholars to look at individual countries and see how these policies are affecting enrollment or how these policies are impacting social variables such as crime rate, among others. And 3, the dominance of electoral competition approaches to the evolution of free policies instead of pragmatic politics or within a national broad framework recommend that scholars in public administration closely monitor the outcomes in the medium and the long term of these free policies to know their impact. How is the job market responding to the people coming out from this education? How is the quality of education not being compromised? These are some of the gaps that we identify out of this study that we believe other scholars can take up and study. The good thing is that these are other relevant publications by myself and by some of my colleagues and some of my supervisors, which is ongoing. I think today we have a meeting to talk about it. Which is trying to fill some of these gaps that has already been identified. Some of them have been published, some of them are undergoing review. That we believe that there's a potential to continue on this. So it doesn't end here. It is a work in progress, but they were not included in the main dissertation, but we are still working on it. I cannot end my presentation without mentioning some key individuals who have been so instrumental to me throughout my stay here in Hungary. First, I'll mention my professors, Professor Juligadus and Professor Attila Bata. In fact, these two professors have been like a father for me in this university. They have helped me so much to come out with high quality publication, I would say, in international journals. And I can't thank them enough. I thank them so much for their patience, their training, their criticisms, everything. I thank them so much. I'll mention Professor Zobipa, Professor Anna. They integrated me into the Department of Public Policy and Management, and I felt part and parcel of this university. Having the opportunity to teach in master's classes, supervise master students, I'm always grateful to them. Professor Reka and Professor Lotan Balash, I'm someone who always like attending international conference a lot. I'll be worrying them with some sponsorship funding, but they never got tired of me. I thank them so much. My PhD course mates, their criticisms, we critique each other and everyone. I'm so grateful. My committee members, draft this proposal committee members, and the Hungarian government and Campus Public Foundation and Ghana Scholar Secretary for the opportunity to found my PhD studies. I'm grateful to all of them. These are some key references that were used in the study. I thank you so much, professors, for your time and your attention and your questions, your comments and feedback.